There we go. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. Awesome. Okay, Janelle is up on stage. And then we'll wait for Vitalina to come up on stage. Just turn on your camera and your mic, and you should be up on stage. Welcome, everyone. Last
Hey
workshop of the
everyone.
evening. Oh, let's do it. All right,
Yeah.
Janelle, I'll let you take over. I've talked enough.
Thanks, Darlise. I know it's probably been a long one day. Hi, everyone, and welcome to AI Beyond Productivity. We are so excited to have you here today. My name is Janelle. I'll be presenting. I'm not presenting. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I will be, I'll be your technical support for the session. Before we get started, I just wanted to make sure everyone is set up for a great experience. If you have any questions or any issues during the session, feel free to reach out to me directly in the chat. As you know, it's like and I'll be here the entire time to help you out. A quick note about the tools we'll be using today. You'll see the Q&A feature in your toolbar. If you've been here for the entire event, you know where it is. Just make sure to get your questions in there. If you like a question that you really want answered, just make sure to upvote it for us. And let's make this interactive and fun. Now, I'm thrilled to introduce our amazing speaker for today's workshop, Vitalina.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chanel. Let me
No
share my
problem.
presentation.
Mhm.
Okay. So when I saw a call for speakers, the first idea that I had actually was to teach you guys some technical skills. Um, but then I thought, like, wait a minute. We all, in a way, interact with AI. We all, in a way, sort of in our daily life, we sort of depend on AI at some in one way or another. And then I thought, okay, that actually goes beyond algorithms, goes beyond data, for example, and beyond like productivity that like we're searching for, right? So technically, AI affects our lives and how we go about our life, right? And the life of many other people. And then I thought, okay, so hence we should have a discussion which is beyond algorithms, data, and actually see AI as collaborative investments that we're making. Um, so hence, welcome to my presentation, AI Beyond Productivity, where I try to challenge you as best as I can to see AI not just as like just a value generation, just a productivity solution, but something more that actually affects our life, our own lives and like lives of many people. So on the agenda that I want to start with, maybe first just to sort of talk about AI in daily lives, and then specifically focus on AI in organizations. Um, so I've done my research during my PhD. I've done quite extensive research in people analytics area, and I think some of the learnings are crucial for you guys that might inform your practice or how you think about AI or how you build AI in the future. So I also want to tell you about my research in more details and also my experience from extensive years in consulting. And then provide you with some actually hands-on learnings and ideas and things that you can actually use moving forward. So a little bit about me. So as you can hear, maybe infer from my accent, I'm not from the US. And I lived in many different countries. I worked in Sweden, Australia, United States. I guess US is my sort of permanent place now. I've done my research. So at the University of Sydney, but before that, I was at Uppsala University. And also I worked at BCG, KPMG, and also my research was sponsored by one of the consulting companies from Europe. And currently, I'm actually steering away from consulting and focusing more on startup ecosystem. In the past, I helped women and I coached women where to start with the startup, how to think about startup, what not to be afraid of, and that it's okay to even sometimes maybe not succeed, 2 steps back and stuff like that, which is quite normal. And of course, I spent past 3 years talking about AI, and I had a number of workshops with clients about AI. So there is a lot to say, but let's just focus on one particular aspect today. So I want to ask you, thinking about your sort of day-to-day life, work life, even just imagine like when you get up in the morning and check your phone. So on a day-to-day sort of like, how many times do you think you interact with AI? And I might start a polling if Chanel can help me with the polling.
I added
Hello.
the poll, so
So we are not looking for hard facts here, more just to think about your life. So I know some of you will be more technically savvy, and maybe some of you would be engineers, and some of you would be more on the business side. That's okay.
so in the polls, it looks like we have a 50% of people say they use it once a day. I put like
Mhm.
50, 100, and then I put about like 100,000 just to make it
Yeah,
interesting. And then we have like 150 and 100. So it looks like about 50% of people use it about once a day.
yeah, that's actually great. But let me share back. So the actual research, when I tried to find this information from 2022, on average, the stats shows 34 interactions a day, but then today it goes up to 100 for some people. And this is crazy because sometimes we don't even notice that we interact with AI systems. Um, and we can take a day, for example, when I wake up, right, I check the weather, and that's number one, right? Predictions. I live in New York currently, and I don't know, but predictions never right. So I take umbrella when I don't have to. Um, which is interesting. And then I use maps, right? Google Maps to navigate traffic. And then I check my email, right? So definitely something goes to spam. Sometimes I need auto reply and stuff like that. And then for example, every day in the evening, I set my sort of sleep pattern kind of app, which helps me better sleep. So that actually like sort of helps me to manage my well-being. So if you think about these little things, then we end up actually interacting with AI pretty much way more than one time a day, which is for some people it will be scary, for some actually quite exciting times ahead. But let's focus today specifically how we interact with AI at work. So, and you probably already can name me quite a few cases. Email filtering, as I mentioned, which can be also used outside of work, productivity, data analysis tools. I guess ChatGPT doesn't need to be even mentioned here. And taking notes during meetings is quite popular these days, and generating ideas. So one thing I want to mention, and one thing that I observe, and it not only from working in consulting, but also working outside of consulting and doing my research, is that organizations predominantly focus on AI for efficiency and productivity reasons. So they want to be productive. They want to save time. They want to save money, perhaps. They want to have more value, automate processes, right? Introduce new capabilities, have more data-driven decisions if possible. So the focus seemed to be right, and all that goes into even idea to bring AI into organizations seem to be right. And we see if we read different magazines and journals and blog posts, everything suggests us that we actually benefit a lot from AI. But this sort of a little bit of a myopic focus on just productivity might not get us um, to the area of employee well-being, right? We never really talk about it. We never really talk about what happens after we implement AI and actual use of AI. So organizations rarely think beyond adoption, so the actual use, right? So let's step back for a moment. So when like CEOs make decisions to actually adopt AI, right? They don't have to be technological experts. They have enough tech experts in organizations. They rarely do any evaluations afterwards, let's say. Um, Well-being is not exactly a word that we read daily, right? In reports and how we measure satisfaction. It's rarely circulating around. And rarely we actually take into account any fears or how we even talk as employees about AI, right? Maybe we develop our common language and like the way we do about, for example, Zoom, right? We always say, hey, unmute yourself. Like we know automatically, we have like key things that we know about Zoom. Um, Also, there is little focus on context. So when we bring AI, we think, okay, this tool works. The vendor seemed to be the right vendor. The vendor showed me how to use it and set objectives and explain everything, and it all seemed to work. But rarely we actually take into account all the intricacies of context. Um, and all organizations shape differently, right? In a way, um, different sort of reporting patterns sometimes, and there are some stereotypes, way of doing things, and stuff like that. And also, when we bring AI into organization, we rarely think about workplace interactions, right? Those water cooler discussions, how we interact with each other, what would be the power dynamics, how the reporting gonna change. Um, so these little things seem to be meaningful. So I want to tell you a little bit what I found. So this is just a part of my PhD, part of my research that I've done, and I want to share with you a few key things that were important and how I actually derived them. So initially, I was quite open to AI, and these were early days, like let's say 5 years, right? These were early days when people just started to understand what AI is capable of, and that we need to bring those complex algorithms to work and do something. And one of the first departments was actually human resource, and people analytics was really big, right? Now it's even bigger. But back then, it was something that was sort of starting to grow, and people wanted to have people analytics. Sometimes they even had one person in the whole company doing people analytics, which was interesting to observe. So when I actually landed on this topic to try to understand what actually happens when people bring AI and start using it, so past the actual implementation and adoption phase. My questions were, do they have common understanding? What about context? Do they just think about AI as a tool, right? As something like as I don't know, like a PowerPoint, let's say, right? Something simple as that, or Teams that everyone is using. Um, do they assign any meaning to AI, right? And I was interested in tools that measure actually performance of employees. So it's a very interesting area, and it actually a lot depends on how we are evaluated, right? Our well-being depends on it, our career depends on it. It's a very meaningful area. Um, so the hardship back then was actually to find organizations that were past adoption phase, that actually already using algorithms, AI, to evaluate employees. So I spent quite some time to sort of understand where to find those organizations, how to actually allow those organizations um, to share their data, to let me speak with everyone, with all the key stakeholders, to be there in the organizations daily with employees to understand what they're talking about, how they're talking about AI, how they're using. So I ended up sitting next to people, which was actually a fun time, really fun time. So I learned about use of AI, and I learned from different stakeholders. So I pinpointed a few groups, a few departments that are affected, and naturally executive level. And then one thing that actually was quite interesting is that just thinking about AI as a tool was not enough. So it's not just a tool that people use daily. There is a lot to do with organizational context, a lot to do with the way we understand the systems. So, and the best thing is that when you talk to people, right, they kind of assign certain meaning to systems. They talk about them, like back in the day about like fax machine. Oh, this never works, right? They develop certain understanding about AI, create certain words that they call like, okay, I'm going to talk to this highly intelligent machine, for example, right? Or some kind of lingo. So one thing that helped me to actually navigate this situation is to think about AI as a very flexible technology that doesn't have any predefined meaning. So it can be shaped by anyone in any way, which makes it the language, it makes language to be a very crucial thing or key to understanding of how we can actually better navigate AI if we listen to stakeholders, right? If we understand their clues in the language. And actually, well-being came up as one thing, but it came up as a resistance, as autonomy, lack of autonomy and stuff like that. So it came up in the language, in the conversations that stakeholders had. And thinking about AI beyond just thinking about it as a tool, actually really important because AI is only here to grow. And navigating like which stakeholders are important is going to be even more complex. So we know we need everyone at the table. So when we design AI, we actually target only a few groups of people, right? But nowadays, on average, AI projects span 5 to 7 departments, and this number is going to grow. There will be more people. There will be people with very different expertise, with very different language that they use daily and how they think about AI, right? Like engineers will not say like they won't use certain words to actually explain AI. They will think about data, for example, and other aspects of algorithms that are important. So the common language that people assign in organization is going to be even more important. So a few things. So when we think about AI as a flexible technology, so that actually we we benefit from it because we depart from thinking about the fixed technology mindset, right? And one thing is, many organizations do this these days. They usually set goals. They usually have a very predefined objectives, right? And they bring technology into the organization. So that fixed technology mindset is actually limiting us quite a lot because we're not actually re-evaluating AI and actually challenging it enough. For example, the area of well-being, right? Initially, it's not even discussed, but it should come up at some point, or it will come up at some point. So we need to be able to renegotiate, reassign the meaning, use different words when we talk about AI as AI evolves. So initially, when we talk about AI as a fixed technology, we think we have a clear view of potential. We start with it, we know what we're going to measure, and vendors are pretty clear about it, which is a good thing. But sometimes it can also limit in a way, right? Because again, if these systems are flexible and we think about them holistically and not just as algorithms, as data, right, as other aspects, just sort of a narrow view, we actually don't know which stakeholder is going to be important in the long run and which stakeholder is going to join the conversation, right? Because they're going to be affected by AI. Initially, we like to sort of determine, okay, these are the groups of people that are going to use technology, and we sort of predefine those groups, right? For example, the reports will go strictly to the executive level. And from my research, I realized that HR people that actually were should have been primarily the beneficiaries of all the insights, they were not. So AI changed the dynamic, but it was hard to visualize it, given that everything already was sort of written. Okay, this is how people should have behaved, and etc. These are the policies, these are the norms. But what happened on the ground when we think about organizational context, right? It was quite different, and it was something that was that people talked about, and sometimes surveys do not capture it. Perhaps like having conversations is actually a better way, like interviews, to capture how people think about what they think, to sort of what meaning they assign to certain events that happen when they use AI, right? And what it means to them. So another thing that is really important that actually came from my research is, and we need to empower all stakeholders. So sometimes when we introduce AI systems in organization, we focus solely on management, right? Because we want to show productivity gains, we want to show value, we want to ensure that all the investment that we made, actually we can sort of back it up, right, with numbers, and that is okay. But that will not what got us sort of here where we are now, right? Might not get us where we want to go. And we want to ensure that the AI systems are actually beneficial to all the stakeholders, right? So we want to have a better, like bigger perspective, macro perspective. And hence, we need to invite more people. So we need more people at the table. The reason why, if we just focus on management and on vendor proposition solely, we might end up sort of accepting this vendor proposition without taking all the intricacies of the context, as mentioned before. And sort of, in a sense, that we are not challenging any routines, or we're not sort of looking beyond what is given to us. And if we actually thinking about macro perspective, so we need to pay attention to the how the information is shared, and what critical infrastructure is needed. If there are more stakeholders that are affected, or in the future that will be sort of participating in either reevaluation or the other aspect. And sometimes we also need to depart this sort of supporting role or not supporting role, right? It's like in my research, when I talk to HR professionals, technically HR is a support function, right? And rarely we reevaluate certain things, because HR, it's hard for HR to prove that they're actually bringing a lot of financial value, right? In a sense. But yet they're making the decisions about people's well-being, people's careers. So hence, we kind of meet this stakeholder, and there are many stakeholders like this. There are many departments that will be affected, and that they have stakeholders that will be influential to the design and to ensuring that we are actually thinking about well-being of employees in organization. They're raising these issues. So one more aspect is we need to agree on problems and adopt team sport thinking. So agreeing on problems. So again, without actually having conversations and allowing different stakeholders to evaluate AI, to talk about AI, to assign certain meaning to our systems that they use daily. Through these conversations, people usually agree on problems, and they say, yeah, that didn't work for me last time. And they sort of look at it from different perspectives, right? For example, HR people see, okay, no, that metric, not going to do. It doesn't show exactly what we need. And for example, engineers, right? They know the limitations, and hence they can actually step in and say, wait a minute, that's exactly the problem that we're facing here. But we need to ensure that we agree on those problems, right? We're not fixing them sort of separately. Or actually, we're just driven by what problems are important to certain groups, right? And that those groups actually get to report to executive level, and hence those problems only sort of get any attention. So we need to ensure that stakeholders can actually communicate and exchange information and sort of have their own language. So one thing, why is it important and why we need to depart from the focus on a common implementation practice is that sometimes people tend to sort of rely on stereotypes, right? For instance, when in the past organization had certain experience with technology, people tend to bring this, like what didn't work, and sort of try to assign it to AI. But AI is a bit different technology in a sense that it doesn't have a really predefined, right? We use AI for so many things, and it means so many things to different people. So this sort of experience of stereotypes and how we go about technology as business as usual might not work if we actually want to ensure that we have all the stakeholders benefiting from AI. Also, thinking about just AI skills gap, sort of might not, without stakeholder input and sort of constant renegotiation, and maybe people see some roles could be expanded, sort of taking on board this information from different stakeholders is really important. Also, solely relying, for example, on a top-down approach, like a very classic approach, um, it might limit how, like, whether the conversation's gonna emerge, right? And certain people gonna connect with each other, and certain departments gonna collaborate. So we need a macro perspective, which will help us develop common language, common understanding, help people agree, employees agree on existing problems, um, develop common language and definitions, what they mean when they do this. For example, when they interact with AI, what does it mean to them and how would they call it, right? After all, we coin a term Googling, right? So maybe that will be some alternative term that employees in organization going to use when they interact with AI and they say, hey, I'm talking to this intelligent machine or something. So this is really important. So we need to allow employees to actually assign certain meanings, right? Discuss how they use AI. So a few things that I want to leave with, sort of action items if you want. And moving forward, I know some of you will be designing AI-based solutions, and some of you will be using them, and some of you will be sort of I don't know, just curious about what is important. And so the first thing is engage in conversations. Sometimes just sending a survey to ask how employees are doing might not be enough, um, because we might omit those language cues, right? So it's really important to actually let people talk, to develop certain language and certain patterns, right? Like around AI, when they click this is what happened. When they get this output, this is going to happen. Or for example, if they get certain output from AI and they say, no, that's rubbish, right? So they have this experience and they try to assign certain meaning. Okay, I might not use AI for this particular reason, or I might flag it as a problem, see if somebody else has the same problem, right? So giving this space is really important. And then another thing is evaluate AI use past adoption. So sometimes we plan everything in organizations, right? We have objectives, and this is great, and this is necessary, but revisiting certain things is also important. Um, and you need to be prepared that as people discuss, as people use AI, develop certain views in the process of using AI. Um, there might be some power struggles, right? Like certain people will be more empowered than others. There will be certain dynamic that is happening. There will be certain interaction patterns that are emerging. And that's not something that you can just gauge from just people's roles, right, in organization. So these little things are important, hence reevaluating how we use AI is actually quite important. Also, how AI is used and by whom. So from my research, I realized that because executive level was getting all the reports, and AI was getting some, of course, naturally, um, but executive level realized that there is a lot of power in those reports. And hence, they try to ensure that they sort of aggregate those reports. They have the first access, and they are the ones who interpret the reports with all the employee metrics. So that was a very interesting dynamic that happened. So we need to make sure that we sometimes adjust or maybe like put brakes on certain things, or say, wait a minute, there is something that isn't working the way we wanted it, or uh, that pattern, the way it works now, is actually not beneficial to employees or some of the stakeholders. Um, so adjusting is really good, and then align. We need to ensure that we commit enough resources, right? That we pay attention to what employees are talking, that we have um, sort of enough time, and we are, or any other resources that are actually necessary for employees to be able to connect with each other, for example, or if they have capabilities that they need. And it's not just educating them, it's allowing them to actually learn from each other, right? Um, and creating those little pockets of collaboration. After all, AI becomes a collaborative investment, right? It's not just investment into enhanced productivity. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity to talk to you guys. I know it's my presentation was the last presentation of the day, and you might be already somewhat exhausted, but that's okay. I welcome any questions now, and I'm happy to open the floor to questions. In case you have any questions to me personally, you can always connect on LinkedIn, or you can always ask me what I'm doing next and in the AI space if you're interested. So I think.
While we wait for questions, just a note that you can ask questions in the Q&A feature to the right for anyone who wants to ask a question. I did have a question, so I was like, let me just come up on the stage. But how would you go about deciding when AI is the answer to a problem versus AI being more so adding to the problem? It would just be kind of over-engineering things.
Yeah, that's actually really good. And I think that's why we need more stakeholders at the table. Because engineers will always tell you AI can help, it will automate, and they will always have this sort of approach. But if you actually bring like agile experts, right, and they will tell you sometimes AI is not an answer, because we want to have this flexibility, right? We can't just always automate and bring AI and have like predefined answers based on data sets that we have. Sometimes we need to sort of be a bit more creative. I don't know. Like it depends on the company culture as well. But naturally, I've noticed when I've done my research, and one of the organizations was actually really big bank in Australia. Most stakeholders isn't always bad. It actually allow us to challenge certain biases, and that's really important, especially when it comes to like executive level has a lot of power, and no one denies that. So sometimes you really need a few stakeholders, like other stakeholders at the table, like HR, like org specialists, to actually sort of ensure that okay, these are the aspects that we need to raise. These are the problems that we see, and it seems like we agree across different departments. So hey, what do you think? We need to challenge executive level, because for them it looks like just the productivity. We gave you tools, you guys gonna use them. We need to see, something is happening, our numbers. But when we talk about well-being, it's just not enough, right? We need to sort of have a broader conversations, and we need to allow people to talk about AI. Maybe even sometimes it's not in a good way, right? Sometimes people will say, hey, I actually resist using these tools. And you will see in conversations, people sometimes do that. So one couple of organizations where I interviewed people, they said that I'm really actually quite scared, and I'm not comfortable, because I'm losing my autonomy. I don't know who is actually monitoring me. Um, but this information only comes up in conversations. It will never come up in a survey, right? Engagement survey. That's not enough.
Interesting. That's a good point. And especially as you talked about, like even bringing agile experts to the table, do you find that different teams or like the HR person, the agile person, the product managers, like, do they all need to have some knowledge of AI to be able to sit at that table and, kind of contribute to that conversation of, okay, yeah, AI is great, but maybe not right here, would that kind of help better inform that conversation? And then to what level do they need to kind of learn about AI to contribute in that way?
Yeah, in a sense, like the way I see AI, and one of my recommendations was actually to see it as a team sport, right? There are some new players on the field, and they might not be as good players, but everyone is important. If we want to succeed, right? Newer generation or people that maybe not as savvy in AI, but they will ask interesting questions.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like, sometimes you're in a call and like people like there are awkward questions, but there are no awkward questions. And AI influences our life, right? If executive level or some other people in organization make decisions on our behalf, evaluate us based on algorithms, we need to be able to question things.
I like that. And I guess my last question, as a lot of our participants are going into this next stage, like after this, they'll go into the Ideathon and the Hackathon next year. How can they essentially take what you said today and then also implement AI in the way they do team strategizing and create their products or and create their projects in a way that's like holistic and keeping in mind that well-being like within their team, but also as they're creating products?
Yeah, actually, a really good thing. In terms of products, I guess inviting different stakeholders to the table and be open to actually, because sometimes you only benchmark the key stakeholders, right? We call them. And then we never really look, beyond, and things are not set. Like everything is moving in a way. And as we get feedback, as we sort of iterate, I guess we need to be open to inviting more stakeholders. I'll give you one example. When I was actually all the people on the team, we wanted to understand what actually, how to disperse grants to different people after COVID. And we were focused on big cities, right? We never really thought about small cities and how life goes there, right? So these little biases, right? Sometimes we just focus on certain things. So I guess we need to a little bit sort of get away from those biases or challenge ourselves, inviting different stakeholders, or even like I guess have some certain information sessions and say, hey, these people done things differently, and maybe we invite them for 30 minutes to say why. Same can be done when we design these AI products, right? So we have a core team, and then we are open to sort of socialize with other teams that done similar or different things to challenge us. So I think challenging is really important, uh, and identifying problems, right? Common language is like, okay, this is what you encounter, and all people agreed. So this is where we are now. We're designing this new product, right? Will this problem that emerged during your sort of, I don't know, sprint or whatever, can it be similar to our? So we need to be able to challenge. So different stakeholders, and also thinking about AI, if we actually like designing this AI products, right, beyond tool set. So that core idea is really important because sometimes we only say, okay, data, let's focus on data. What data do we need? And we get so like, drawn into this that holistically, we don't really think what we actually build and how it's going to affect people. And we actually seen a few examples with bank loans, right? There were massive issues with the way like some people got denied and some people like go okay in seconds. So what is going on there? Was it just overly focused on data? What actually went wrong? And I think that one thing that they could have done differently when they designed those systems is have the right conversations and challenge each other. So there was a lot of this bias, and we tend to have like this Kahneman book and about biases. I
Yeah.
think we need to be prepared that we will have a lot more in the future as AI matures and becomes even more complex. So now at least we can like, okay, what's going on? But systems become more complex. And people tend to add more in the organization. They say, okay, we need more. We need more productivity. People seem to be using them. We add more. So challenging those biases are important. In the end, our well-being is at stake.
Thank you for that, Vitalina. That was my last question. I promise everyone. I'm so sorry. I didn't see any other questions pop up in the chat, but maybe like people were just happy with my questions, which is 100% fine. I'll let
I
you
think you
wrap up.
asked great questions. Those are very great questions.
Very good question.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'll let you wrap up, Janelle.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Elise. Thank you so much to our speaker today, Vitalina. You gave us such a great way of thinking about AI beyond just like productivity. I think it has definitely has me thinking about it and just getting rid of those biases, as you said. And this was an incredible session. For everyone in the chat, do not forget to fill out the feedback. Vitalina would love to hear what your
Mhm.
thoughts are on it. And as this is the last session of the day, thank you everyone for just joining. And I hope everyone has a great afternoon. See you tomorrow again. Take
Fantastic. Thanks,
care.
Chanel. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.